to you about our PGR, our postgraduate research opportunities. I always like to start off giving a view of where we are. I know that we're all online at the moment, but it's also nice to have an idea of where we are as a university and where we are as a faculty. So this is where we are. We're in Glasgow city centre, and we're a short walk away from, I was going to say, two mainline railway stations, one of which is closed at the moment because we had a dreadful fire at the weekend. But we're not far from two mainline railway stations, a bus station and the subway. That means you can get around the city really, really easily. And we're not too far from some fantastic sites in Glasgow. You may have heard of the Duke of Wellington with his traffic cone on his head, which is an iconic image of Glasgow. That's only 5 minutes from campus. So when you do come to us, you'll be able to see that fantastic traffic cone head on that horse. And when we move into where we are on campus, we take up quite a big area of the city. And most of us are based in the north of the campus, up around buildings 8 and 9. I'm just going to tell you a little bit how we're organised, just to help understand how our faculty works. So we are a university with 4 faculties. We've got engineering, we've got humanities and social sciences, we've got the business school, and we've got science. And of course, we are humanities and social sciences, usually referred to as HAS for short. And within HAS, we have several academic departments. We've got Strathclyde's Institute of Education, our Department of Government and Public Policy, the Department of Humanities, which has got several different disciplines, the Department of Psychological Sciences and Health, which also has several different disciplines, the Department of Social Work and Social Policy, and Strathclyde Law School. But we also have several focused research centres, far too many for me to mention. I will always miss one, so I just say that there's many. And as a graduate school, we support all of the PGR students across all of the departments in the faculty. So breaking that down into the departments again, we have in the Institute of Education, we have PGR students doing their research in education or applied autism research. In the Department of Humanities, we have PGR students doing history or English or journalism, media and communication, gender studies, creative writing, modern languages, translation studies. They tend to be the main ones that we have. In law school, it has law. It doesn't have many others in there, it's just law. In the Department of Social Work and Social Policy, we have social work, social policy, criminology and public health and health policy. And in the Department of Government and Public Policy, we've got politics and policy analysis. And in the Department of Psychological Sciences and Health, there's psychology, speech and language therapy, applied linguistics, counselling and physical activity and health. And looking at our population, this is a pie chart which just gives an overview of the sort of PGR population by department. And as you'll see, education has the biggest proportion of PGR students, whereas government and public policy has the smallest proportion of PGR students. On my next slide, I break this down into actual bodies so that you can see our education students. It's around this many that we have that are from the Institute of Education. Our purple students here all come from humanities. They're not all purple, it's just I've coloured them purple on this slide. Our students in psychological sciences and health, there's about this many of them. In social work and social policy, we've got about this many. In law, this many, and in government and public policy, this many. Just to give you an idea of what you'd be joining if you join us. So what is postgraduate research? Predominantly, we have PhD and MPhil students, and we also have MRes, EdD, DEdSci, and DProf students. Our PhD and our MPhil students are undertaking independent research, and that's guided and supported by supervisors. Whereas our MRes and our EdD and our DProf students have some taught modules, also independent research and guided and supported by supervisors. Our Doctor of Educational Psychology are specific population students who are all professional practitioner educational psychologists doing their work on their doctorate at the same time. Now, full-time students are expected to devote a minimum of 35 hours a week to their studies, and part-time students are expected to balance these hours on a pro rata basis. Throughout your journey as a PGR student, we expect that you'll be meeting with your supervisors regularly, typically once a month, and will review your progress every 6 months. So if you're studying full-time, it will take you about this long to reach this number of words in your thesis. So typically an MRes will produce a thesis of around 30,000 words after about a year, and an MPhil thesis of around 30 to 40,000 words after 1 to 2 years. A DEd.Sci thesis is around 50 to 60,000 words after 2 years, and an Ed.D thesis of around 50 to 60,000 words after 3 to 4 years, and a PhD thesis of up to 100,000 words in 3 to 4 years. My next slide just breaks this down as if you were doing it over a part-time basis. Just takes you double the amount of time if you're working part-time on it. Now, how do you apply? There are 2 routes to apply for PGR. You can either apply to an advertised project that's led by a supervisor, or you can apply to do a project that you want to do. And that's where it's really, really important to think about what it is that you want to do. If you're going to apply for a supervisor-led project, we advertise these on this web page, and there'll be an application guidance and a shortlisting and an interview process. If you want to apply to do a project that you've designed, then I'm going to talk to you a bit more about how you do that, because that's the more common route. You need to research the department, and you need to prepare a research proposal which talks about what and why you want to do what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and who you're going to do that with, and where, and why is Strathclyde the right place for you to be doing that. So when it comes to researching the department, the first thing you need to do is look at the university's web pages, see what it is that we do at Strathclyde. What is it about Strathclyde that attracts you? And you really need to tailor your research project proposals so that your work fits with what we do. And that's by looking at our strategic themes. And we've got strategic themes in advanced manufacturing and materials, in energy, in health and well-being, in innovation and entrepreneurship, in measurement science and enabling technologies, ocean, air and space, and people, place and policy. So there's quite a lot that Strathclyde does. And when you're on the web page, click on the strategic theme to see what departments are doing and what areas of expertise and what our centres of excellence are. So look at what's going on at the department, look at the web page, look to see what the research themes and research areas are. Most departments will have a link to their research tab. Have a look at it to see who's doing what. Who's working in the area that you're interested in? And what is it they're doing right now? You can have a look at the university's Pure Portal page, which I've given you a guide there to what the address for that page is, but you put in the supervisor's name at the end. Now, this may seem like a lot of effort, but none of this is time wasted, as it all helps you shape your proposal so that the person reading it has a sense that you really know why you want to come to Strathclyde and why you want that person to be your supervisor. Then start researching your topic. Prospective supervisors want to see a research proposal that's well researched and clearly written. Use your time to read existing recent literature in the area and identify this from what's missing. Because a PhD or an MPhil or an MRes is a research degree that's not about learning existing knowledge, but about generating new knowledge. So the next thing you'll need to do is to develop a research proposal. And I've split this down for you into thinking about the what and why, the how, and the who and the where. So in relation to the what and the why, that's just to make sure that you have a clear idea of a focused research project and some plans on how you would do this. And that's where the how comes in. What your supervisors are looking for is depth of knowledge, not breadth of knowledge. For a PGR, while you might think that it has to be something groundbreaking, in reality, groundbreaking research findings usually come on the back of several projects, each refining and adding information along the way. So what you may be aiming for in your project is a focused and discrete area of research that contributes to wider knowledge. The work you put into developing your project is not wasted effort, and if you're successfully offered a place to study, you'll likely refine and develop your project through discussion with your supervisors. This is why it's critical that you explore what research is going on in the department and understand how your project fits with that. The who and the where. Why Strathclyde? Why now? So this is what we're looking for in a research proposal, and one size doesn't fit all. And I'm going to go through each of these in stage to give you a stronger idea of what we want to see. So we want it to be between 800 and 1500 words, excluding references, depending on the PGR degree. So if you're applying for a PhD, we expect a 1500 word proposal, whereas for an MRes, we'll probably expect one to be between 800 and 1000 words. We'll want to see a title, we'll want to see a background and literature review, aims and objectives, a methodology with a timeline where that's appropriate, and references following a consistent recognised format. When it comes to your title, don't have a long title, be focused. It should clearly indicate the study and/or the proposed approach. And when it comes to the literature review in the background, this is the what. You need to discuss here the most relevant theories, ideas, or texts that are going to influence your aims and objectives and your questions. You should show that you understand the key issues or debates in the field. And then why? Why is your project significant? Why now? What will your research mean and what impact will it have? That should all then lead into your aims and objectives. What will your project achieve? You may have 2 or 3 statements that describe your project's aims, and that could be supplemented with some SMART objectives. That's very much depending on the field. And SMART objectives will be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant or realistic, and time-bound. Your aims should be clear, and your aims should follow your background literature review so that they're addressing a gap or building on existing knowledge. And then you need to think about the methodology. That's the how. Your method needs to be feasible and practical and achievable in the time you have, which is typically 3 years if you're full-time for a PhD. You'll need to expand on how you'll answer your aims and objectives. What data will you need to acquire, and how will you go about this? Do you need any specific permissions to gather that data? And what analysis methods are appropriate for your discipline and for your study? And this may involve exploring various different analytical approaches before justifying the one that suits your proposal. You also need to think ahead. What limitations might there be? Can you predict and can you mitigate for any of these in advance? And can you explain your methodology so it can be replicated? I always think it's really useful to have a timeline or a project plan for a project like a PGR study. And I suggest a Gantt chart, something like this, which can add to your methodology. It will very much depend on your discipline, but this is an example of a Gantt chart for writing a research proposal over the course of a month, where we start off with literature searching for the first week and then reading and synthesizing that literature over the coming weeks, making sure you're searching the university and the department websites, writing your summary of that literature, drafting your research questions, planning out your methodology, and then finally proofreading your proposal. This will very much vary depending on what discipline you're applying for. I know that some of our disciplines will expect other elements that students will submit with their proposal. If you're applying for creative writing, then you will be asked to provide a sample of creative writing. You also need to provide a full reference list for your proposal and check for formatting so that it's using a consistent formatting style. And these are the main ones that we tend to see in humanities and social sciences. When it comes to writing your proposal, I've got some do's and some don'ts. So do set out to impress. Give yourself sufficient time and make sure your project's a good fit for the proposal, for the proposed supervisors in the department. Now remember, doing PGR studies is a lonely journey. You're not given tasks to complete and essays to write, so you're expected to write your proposal on your own to showcase your enthusiasm and your knowledge. And remember, it won't be perfect. If you're offered a place to study, your supervisors will advise you on how to strengthen your plans, and what you end up doing might look a little bit different from what you originally thought you would do. My don'ts: don't send the same proposal to lots of universities because it might not fit. Don't use online templates. Be original. And don't be surprised to see how much your proposal will change if you do start your journey with us, because this is the first draft of your plans and you will change direction on the way. And don't forget, all of the work that you're doing for your proposal is just the beginning of your research journey. It's time well spent preparing yourself for what it's going to be like doing PGR research. Now, when applying for your own project, make sure that you include your research proposal and if anything else is required for that discipline, a 2-page CV, which includes academic achievements and any professional experience, academic transcripts, 2 academic reference letters, and if you're an international student, then we will need to have an IELTS score with a minimum overall band score of 6.5 or higher for education, taken within 2 years prior to starting your study. Check for some subject areas because they might require that to be a little bit higher. So you do need to, it's your responsibility to check what is the score that's required. Now we get asked this question a lot about what funding and what resources for study there are and what support there is. Funding being the big one, and we understand that everybody is looking to try and find some opportunities for funded research projects. There are funded opportunities from the Arts and Humanities Research Council and from the Economic and Social Science Research Council. Recruitment for 2026-2027 entry is actually closed from both of these competitions, but there will be information for next academic year for starting in 2027-2028 about how you would apply for those. If you are applying for those, we expect you to work closely with your prospective supervisors in developing your applications, because each application is reviewed at several rounds internally at the university and externally with the funder. We do sometimes have some university scholarships. We have a Diamond Jubilee Research Scholarship. This is a fees-only scholarship. We're still waiting to be advised how many of those we have available for starting in 2026-2027. Now, in terms, that's always good to look on our website because that's where we will show where all that information is. There's also a link to the alternative guide to postgraduate funding, where many people look to try and source pots of money from various different sources to support their studies. In terms of our facilities in our graduate school, we have a dedicated study space with bookable desks. That has a kitchen, has lockers, it has meeting rooms and a common room. It's a really, really nice space, or 2 spaces at the top of the current building. And we also have excellent librarian support. We have excellent HAS librarians dedicated to the disciplines, wide access to databases and to journal collections, all of which will really support and help you through your PGR journey. So this is just a summary, how you apply, find your chosen subject, looking at our web pages, make contact with potential supervisors or apply online from the subject page and upload the various different documents. Now, for those of you who are international students, we do have a pre-sessional academic English and study skills for our conditional or unconditional offer holders. And that's an absolutely superb department that really does invest in your academic success. If you intend to start your PGR studies with us, we might offer you a recommendation that you engage with some of our pre-sessional skills. This is more than just a way for you to meet your English language condition for your PGR studies. It's an investment in your success. And on that course, you will study English in the context of your academic field. And that might include helping with how to listen to and understand academic colleagues discussing their subject areas, how to read and extract key points from complex journal articles in your specific research area, and how to speak with confidence to tutors about your research, any gaps you've identified in your working proposal, as well as giving formal presentations on your research and writing an extended academic research project, all in your discipline area, all of which is really useful as a first step in producing your thesis. Even if you don't have an English language condition on your PGR offer, this course will give you the best possible preparation for your new life in Glasgow as a PGR candidate in the faculty. You can find some more information about that on this webpage. They have some pre-sessional academic English and study skills, and they also offer some online and some off-campus modules as well. This is our contact information. If you get any questions, please contact our graduate school. That's our generic inbox, and we will answer your questions. I have received a few questions from some people who are joining us today, and I've got some answers to those on the next slides if I haven't already answered them for you. So somebody did ask about funding. They're currently an MSc student with us and you'd like to stay, and we'd love you to stay. I've mentioned that the fully funded scholarship competitions are now closed. But certainly keep an eye on our website for any new funding opportunities, which might be fees only. But you can also have a look to see if there's any of our funded supervisor-led projects. And I've given a link on this slide to the Scottish Graduate School for Social Sciences, who are currently advertising a variety of funded PGR, PhD projects for students to do. And there's certainly some at Strathclyde that you can look at there. Another question about admission to the MRes programme in Speech and Language Sciences at the university with an attestation letter from your university. The answer to that's potentially yes, though it will depend on when it is that you studied English language. Always have a look at our English language requirements, but there may be variation depending on the programme that you studied. So it's certainly not impossible, it's certainly worth having a look at. And the last question that we had in advance was, I'm highly interested in health research and would love to know more about how to start. My suggestion to you is to have a look at what health research is going on at Strathclyde and see if there's something that matches your interests. And I've given you a starting point of where you can find the various research centres that are doing work in health. So I hope that that has been useful. I think that's the end of my slides. Seem to have lost control of my slides, and I'll just end